Hello, I'm Gabrielle Blackman, and I'm running to be your trustee. I've been a Dublin resident for over 12 years, living here with my family. Currently, 3 of my children attend our schools. So I personally understand the challenges our schools are facing and the issue this is creating for our children, our families, and our community at large. But that isn't enough. A trustee is about leadership and governance. I graduated from Cornell University with honors and have worked in the architectural industry for over 20 years. I've honed an expertise in planning and design, helping academic groups and institutions much like our own develop innovative long-term solutions that advance education in this, the information age. Now, with Dublin experiencing unprecedented growth and with campuses nearing capacity limits, guaranteeing equal access to a quality education will be challenging. We need a strategic thinking, long-term planning trustee. I will be that trustee for you and for your children. Thank you.
Facing the community and our education system. These questions are very broad in nature. You only have 90 seconds to answer, so you'll have to really get to the heart of what your view is. And we're going to go in the order that was randomly chosen ahead of time. To give the first respondent a chance to absorb a little bit, I will pause for about 5 seconds and give that first respondent a chance to know what the question was. Ideally, note the question down so I don't have to repeat it, because our time is going to fly by. All right, so the first question, which Dan Cherry will be the first person to respond to this one with 90 seconds. Here's the question. School overcrowding at multiple school sites was listed as a key concern in questions received from the community. How will you address the challenges of overcrowding while maintaining a high quality of education? So we'll wait a few seconds.
Thank you. I first want to mention that one of the most important things in addressing growth is actually looking at the alignment between the resources that you have, the physical environments that are available in your district. Aligning those, it's sort of fluid dynamics puzzle with the constant growth, ebb and flow of student populations. We know currently that we're almost maxed out in certain grade levels in certain locations. And so we're diverting students to other areas, which means that those students are enduring an extra long commute between where they live and where they go to school. And that's really disingenuous, I feel, to those students. We hear about it every now and then in the news. We need to find a better way to address it. Take into consideration the quality of the education we're giving the kids doesn't just start when they enter the classroom. It starts when they are at home, they're engaged in their homework, talking to their friends, when they're in those long commutes. So from my point of view, my experience, it means looking at those assets and aligning them with our student population projections. We know that we are going to exceed some of our capacities very shortly. And so as a trustee, I'll be looking at what those issues are and how we can get to a statement where we actually admit we are over capacity in some of our facilities. It is not okay to continue to add portables and to deny what everybody knows is true. Thank you.
And parcel taxes and in support of Dublin public education. What will be your priorities for both investing the bond money recently approved and ensuring Dublin Unified School District is fiscally solvent? We'll start with Mr. Cunningham.
Hi, I just want to state that I support the 3 critical paths that our district is facing at the moment. Growth, which parlays directly into our need for the second high school. Modernization, because we definitely need to address our aging facilities that we have in the district. As well as the sciences, because we need to establish our ranking as a STEM leader in our community and nationwide. But how you go about this is critical. Planning is an integral part of looking at the relationship between where you need to go and what funding sources you have. Aligning those is the only way we're going to get this done effectively. Just to understand, the funding that's available, whether it's from the state or bond measure or developers, it is not an equally balanced 3-legged stool. There's really not enough funding coming in from developers to build a full functioning school. We rely on bond measures to supplement those monies, and that's the failure of SB 50. Level 3 or not, we will never have enough money to build directly out of a developer fee structure. So when we talk about also aligning with our fiscal resources, we need to consider the fact that our district, the student population grew just under 7%, and yet our costs grew roughly 16%. That to me signals that there's a misalignment between what's occurring in our population growth and our spending. So the first thing is we need to get our house in order with regard to that. We also know that there are costs coming up shortly, increases in some state costs, as well as reduction in state funding that will have a dramatic effect on some of the programs we're able to offer our students. So I'm very much in support of the 3 key priorities that we've established. Thank you.
Abilities. How will you address the needs of these students? And we'll start with Ms. and Ms. Wagner.
Thank you. I just want to say that I think we're doing an amazing job in some of the programs that we've developed in this district addressing those students with special needs. I'm particularly fond of the fact that we've recently taken steps to try and integrate students with a certain level of special needs directly into the classroom, because we recognize how important it is for those students to develop bonds with their other classmates. It is really important to nurture those relationships so that they can feel that they're part of the community, and I'm a strong supporter of it. Why? Because many members of my family actually are special needs individuals. For example, my uncle-in-law is a blind DA who fights drug enforcement issues and puts criminals to jail. And I know the power of that kind of support and what it can do for our community. I also have a dyslexic brother-in-law who basically invests on Wall Street. And just because he cannot necessarily read things the way others people can doesn't mean he doesn't have a brilliant mind. And we need to acknowledge that everybody has a gift and a talent, and that we need those talents to be able to build a great society. So I'm fully in support of many of the programs that we offer our students. I think we've done a great job, but I also recognize that we need to embrace these students in our schools so that they can engage in activities across the board in our curriculum, so that they can build those strong bonds with our students, our faculty, staff. Thank you.
All right, we move on to our 4th question. The most recent bond measure set several priorities, most notably building a 2nd comprehensive high school. Lots of questions about this, no surprise. What is your specific plan to fulfill this commitment to the community?
Thank you. This is one of the most critical issues in our district. And at the moment, the only real solution is to develop some strategic planning. We know that we have roughly 1,000 students matriculating into our 9th grade class, or 9th grade students in high school, which means that if you do the math, thankfully not with Common Core, but if you do the math, that would lead you to an estimate of maybe 4,000 students in our high school in 3 years. That eclipses what we're looking at the moment. So when you look at that, we're at a critical stage with our high school, and yet we have not begun the necessary planning to solve it. We should right now be midway, if not completed, with our programming effort on the high school. If we had a program, we know what we need to build and the critical issues that we would need to address, the programs we would support. And only then could we look at what we could parse off for the first 1,000 student phase. So looking at where we are right now, strategically thinking, means that we need to actually consider what goes into a 2nd high school to ensure that we provide a fair and equitable education for the students that go there. It means looking at our programs, looking at the contact hours with each student in each subject matter, looking at which facilities and which programs we can move into that 2nd first phase high school. It means looking at what facilities we can leave at DHS because they support a 5,000 student population. We have to get very creative. And I've stated before, it's all about changing the construct of a high school.
I play in helping students manage stress, balance academic and non-academic activities, and regularly achieve a full night's sleep, which has been in the news a lot lately. And we will start with Ms. Miller.
Can you repeat it one more time? It's a long question.
Sure. What role should the district play in helping students manage stress, balance academic and non-academic activities, and regularly achieve a full night's sleep?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's something that we've been really focused on, and one of the ways in which the school board can help with that is in policies. We have really looked at our homework and our grading policy. We've looked at our, I'm on the wellness committee, and we're looking at different, I guess, the homework policy is the biggest one, but we also need to we've implemented many programs already to help students with that, like the Gale period at the high school, to provide them this academic flex time where they can take a breath, they can get tutoring. We are providing a lot of support services. I do think it's important to have policies in place that help students understand what they're taking on when they are an athlete and they are taking AP courses. And we've talked about, we haven't said anything yet, but we've talked about, do we limit AP classes? Do we have them sign a contract? What is the right thing to do? And we bring in a lot of speakers. We actually just had Denise Pope here, and we have a whole spectrum of speakers coming in to speak with parents and students about this issue exactly, because it is an epidemic. We do have relationships with the county provides services. We have increased our mental health services at the high school, not just for special needs students. We actually contract out with other services like Hume and Horizon so that our students can receive mental health services on campus as well. And I really think it comes down to awareness. I think we're all aware that our students experience a lot of stress, and I think it's a conversation that's happening constantly between staff and parents and students and the school board. Thank you.
Ms. Swan?
Regarding this, I'm a nurse, so I understand well-being is very important. And then I would like to, for the board, have more counselor, and then I just like the aware of the issue at earlier stage, so we can train the teachers after well-being, find the stress issue of the student at a very earlier stage, and then can treat that from there on. And then also regarding the homework, and I'm thinking that I feel like the time is more important and not really the amount of homework. You should realize the homework is your base, and then trying to build up your base for the future study. And then the time is important. So, for instance, for example, it's like for first grade, second grade, you can just set up time for 20 minutes, and then some student can finish 5 questions, some student can finish 30 questions, all of them are okay. So, yeah, so my main goal is like help the communication between the community and then the board member to understand each other's challenge, and then give feedback to the board, and then help them help them in the programs as well as the counselor services.
Mr. Giannini?
Well, this is a topic that actually kind of hits me close to home. Being a law enforcement officer for 21 years, I've seen firsthand the stress that students have felt, the stress that parents have put on students, and the stress that society has put on kids. And I've seen the horrific results of some of the stress that we have put on kids. We definitely need to address it. And it's kind of a tough thing to talk about at home sometimes. I'd definitely like to expand our emotional support for kids. Instead of having someone for the kid to talk to, I'd like to be able to teach students how to deal with their emotional issues. Can we bring in yoga, meditation? Let's slow things down. Let kids think a little bit, breathe a little bit. Isn't it always be stressed out in the world? They will have stress. When they get into college and they get into the real world, they're going to have stress. There's no reason why 5th graders and 4th graders should be scared to go to school to the test day. Or 7th or 8th graders should be going to a counselor contemplating suicide. Those are things we need to address as a society and really look at ourselves. At work, we have a thing called BSU. It's a behavioral science unit. If a police officer, a family member has an issue, they go to the behavioral science unit, speak to a clinical psychologist, not just a counselor, a real psychologist, and get advice, someone to talk to. It is costly, but it's something that the school district could look into. Thank you.
Ms. Blackman?
Hi, thank you. One of the issues, I think, is that we're finding that we're putting a lot of pressures on our students. We're trying to model our students after ourselves. We've turned them into commuters, and we've given them a huge amounts of work. They go to school 5, 6 hours a day, and then they come home for a few hours, maybe 3 or 4 hours worth of homework. Now, to the average person who works an 8-hour day, that's a huge amount to carry on your shoulders day after day, week after week, throughout the school year. You wouldn't ask it of yourselves, we shouldn't be asking it of our children. Data shows that in fact the only really effective homework is in the math area, and yet we load up our kids with lots of homework everywhere else. First of all, I would like to see a program implemented where across curriculum groups that the faculty and the staff and the students are basically looking at how much homework is assigned across every week. I have run into this way too many times in my own family when my children have had up to 6 hours of homework simply because the teachers have not aligned the coursework for that day. And what do you do? How do you augment that? The stress level is huge. I would also ask that we look at things, as Joe had mentioned, that can offset some of those stress levels. In Chicago, there was a recent study that came out where they implemented a meditation room that helped reduce stress levels for children, as well as reduce students that have behavioral issues in the classroom. So we need to think outside the box and find better ways to address stress in our community.
sixth question, we received questions from the community about the relationship between the district, the city, and developers. How will you approach this important set of relationships? And we'll start with Mr. Hickey.
Can you repeat the question again?
Yes. We received questions about the relationship between the district, the city, and developers. How will you approach this important set of relationships? Ms. Blackman?
Thank you. The answer is communication, communication, communication. We don't have enough of it. We don't reach out enough with ideas across the board to all the groups to basically build consensus and understanding. We need to understand what motivates people to come to the table to work with us. One of the things I find interesting, and I'll quote you, Megan, is that we know that there's roughly about $100,000 of money required to basically house one student. I believe that was something we stated in one of the board meetings. But yet developers per house maybe only pay $15,000. So you know right off the bat, every house that's built, you're at an enormous deficit. And we know that SB 50 is broken. It does not provide us the necessary funding. So the first thing is to really reach out to the state to change that formula. Then we can have a meaningful discussion with the developers about what we need to do. But also when we actually go to those city council meetings and talk to those representatives, we need to express the fact that some of what's occurring in our city is dramatically and negatively impacting our schools. We need to actually stand up sometimes and say, you know what, we really cannot support more housing. And the only way to get there is to actually go and say that we are over capacity. Nielsen sits empty right now, and yet we're spending money to proceed into growing a new facility at Dublin Crossing where there are no students at the moment. And yet we have not begun full-blown work on programming. I know you said that we're doing programming, but not from a strategic planning point of view. Thank you.
All right, our final question before closing statements. What do you view as the greatest strength of Dublin schools that you would want to reinforce and protect? And what do you view as the greatest weakness that you would want to address? And we'll start with Ms. Blackman.
This is a really great question. I have a lot of little people in my family going to the school, so my first point of view is going to be from the eyes of somebody who's about half my height. And what I think is wonderful about our schools is our teachers. They are amazing. The way that they reach out to the students and the quality of the education, how they work with each individual student's capabilities, skills, and perhaps sometimes difficulties in learning, I think is one of the greatest assets we have in this district. We put a lot of pressure on our teachers to help our students achieve, and I think they do a stellar job. So if I talk about one of the things that I would focus heavily on, it would be that we are not meeting some of our needs in terms of career and college readiness. I know it's been discussed by others, but although we have made great strides over the last several years, we have a very long way to go. We need to be looking not just within what the state requirements are to go to a state school, but also the fact that our students are competing against students all across the United States to get into those wonderful, incredible programs. And there is plenty of data that shows that that first stepping stone is the one that leads you forward the rest of your life. We can't always look at high school as just a great experience, but we need to understand what we're trying to do for our students. John F. Kennedy had a great quote that I often reflect upon. It says that we cherish our children's future. High school is a stepping stone for that future. And so, thank you.
You have a massive 2 minutes. That's a whole extra 30 seconds. Turn.
Not enough.
Yeah. 2 minutes, you're up to 2 minutes for your closing statement. We will start with Mr. Hakeem. And Ms. Blackman.
Thank you. I'm passionate about innovation, about thinking outside the box, asking the difficult questions that change the way we see the problems we're facing, and then finding solutions where others cannot. I am a strategic thinker and a long-term planner, something our district is in desperate need of now. My work has influenced campus planning and academic development, with 20 publications and over a dozen awards, including the highest, an AIA Honor Award. It speaks for itself. That award was given to a single campus that housed 5,000 students in one building for an academic group. Of all the people sitting here at this dais, I'm the only one who's been able to achieve it and receive the highest award for doing so. With my training in contract review, as well as budget oversight, I know the district can do far more to ensure that we are guaranteeing the best value for every dollar we spend. But most importantly, I am first and foremost a parent. And what motivates me to be your trustee is that I want our children to love learning. I want to remove the stresses that our schools place on our students so that they can begin to focus on what they want to do with their lives. I want us to provide our children with a healthy, student-centric learning experience. But to do that, we need to solve the very real issues our district is facing today. So as your trustee, I will bring the depth of my experience and the breadth of my expertise to work with the other board members and our city to creatively solve our growth issues, to elevate the quality of education we offer all of our students, to align our funding resources with our prioritized needs, not the developers, so that we can modernize our aging schools and build our much-needed second high school. Thank you.
Thank you. To everyone I want to thank all the candidates for being here, all 7 on one night, despite everything else that's going on. It's amazing. I want to thank my wife, Mary, for not having a moment to rest. I want to thank Michael, Parker, Crown, and Dublin. And I want to thank Mr. Tomlinson, who has decided to move on from the school board.